Humanity walked away, and the Galaxy Council knew they were doomed part. The great chamber of the Galactic Council hung in the silent dark between stars, a massive ring of polished alloy and living crystal orbiting a quiet blue sun. Inside, the air shimmered with translated voices, sent signals, and pulses of light, each one a language, each one a species. 17 civilizations sat in their assigned arcs, their forms as varied as the worlds they came from. Some had skin like polished stone, others floated in nutrient mist, and a few communicated only through rhythmic vibrations in the floor. All of them watched the center of the room, where a single human stood alone. Ben Carter wore a plain gray suit, slightly wrinkled from weeks in storage. His shoes were scuffed, his hair uncombed, and his eyes tired but sharp. He carried no weapon, no datapad, not even a comm badge. Just his hands in his pockets and a calm that unnerved everyone watching. He had been summoned to answer for humanity's refusal to comply with Council Directive 47B, the mandatory surrender of all quantum core engines, neural combat interfaces, and independent colony governance. The Council called it harmonization. Earth called it surrender. Councillor Vexilorn of the Kethari hegemony rose from his elevated seat. His body was tall and segmented, covered in iridescent plates that shifted color with his mood. Right now they glowed a deep crimson, anger or perhaps impatience. His voice, translated through the chamber's ambient field, boomed like distant thunder. Ben Carter of Earth, you stand before the united voices of the galaxy. For 3 cycles your species has ignored our summons. You have refused inspections. You have armed civilian outposts. You have tested propulsion systems beyond permitted thresholds. The Council has shown patience. That patience ends today. Ben didn't move. He just looked up at Vexilorn, then slowly scanned the chamber. His gaze passed over the insectoid Zenthari, the gelatinous Ulmari, the crystalline Sirith. All of them powerful, ancient, certain of their place in the cosmic order. None of them had ever truly understood humans. They saw clever animals, quick to learn but reckless, emotional, chaotic. Useful for labor, dangerous when cornered, but never equals. You've made your demands, Ben said, his voice quiet but clear. No amplification needed. Disarm our fleets. Hand over our research. Let your peacekeepers walk our streets. Give up our vote in council matters. In return, you'll let us keep our cities, our farms, our children's schools. As long as we stay quiet, as long as we obey. Vexilorn tilted his head. Compliance ensures stability. Stability ensures survival. Your species has proven unstable. You warred among yourselves for millennia. You poisoned your own world before learning to heal it. You reached the stars not through wisdom but desperation. The Council offers you protection from yourselves. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Some agreed. Others shifted uncomfortably. The Sirith representative pulsed a soft blue. Doubt, Ben smiled. Not a happy smile. Just a small, sad curve of the lips. You think we're afraid of war, he said. You think we're afraid of being alone. But you don't know what we're really afraid of. He stepped forward just 1 pace. The floor panels dimmed beneath his feet, as if recoiling. We're afraid of becoming like you, he said. Silence fell so deep that even the hum of the life support systems seemed to pause. Vexilorn's plates flared crimson white. Explain yourself, human. Ben shook his head. No, I'm done explaining. You've had decades of reports, envoys, cultural exchanges. You've seen our art, our music, our mistakes. You chose to see only weakness. So here's what happens now. Earth withdraws from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately. All human colonies will sever diplomatic and trade ties. Our ships will no longer use shared lanes. Our scientists will publish nothing in the Common Archive. We are stepping out. A gasp rose from the Zenthari delegation. One of them clicked their mandibles in alarm. Withdrawal is not permitted under Charter Article 12. Charter Article 12 assumes you have something we want, Ben said. We don't. Vexilorn leaned forward, his voice dropping to a growl. If you leave, you lose all protections. Any act of aggression by your people will be met with full council response. Your colonies will starve without our supply chains. Your children will grow up in darkness. Ben looked at him for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object, a smooth river stone worn by time, gray with a streak of white. He held it up. This is from the banks of the Colorado River, he said. My grandfather found it when he was a boy. He gave it to my father. My father gave it to me. It's just a rock. But it's ours. Not because we conquered it. Not because we bought it, because we lived with it, loved it, remembered it. He closed his hand around the stone. You think protection means control. We think it means freedom. You can keep your treaties, your rules, your perfect quiet galaxy. We'll take our chaos, our questions, our right to fail or to fly. He turned and walked toward the exit. No one stopped him. No alarms sounded. The great doors slid open, revealing the corridor beyond, lit by soft white light. Behind him, Vexilorn called out, "This is folly, Carter. You doom your species to irrelevance." Ben paused at the threshold. He didn't look back. "No," he said softly. "We doom you to realizing what you've lost." Then he stepped through and the doors sealed shut. In the chamber, silence returned. The council members exchanged glances, pulses, chemical signals. Most felt relief. One less problem. One less unpredictable variable in their carefully balanced order. But Mira Solis, the young human linguist who had served as cultural liaison for 5 years, sat in the human delegation's empty booth. She watched the sealed doors, her hands trembling. She knew what Ben's words really meant. Humanity wasn't retreating in fear. They were walking away because they no longer needed permission to exist, and that, she realized with a chill, was the most dangerous thing of all. Outside the chamber, Ben Carter walked down the corridor, the riverstone still warm in his palm. He passed service drones, alien guards, holographic displays showing galactic trade routes, all of it suddenly meaningless. He reached the docking bay where a small, unmarked shuttle waited. No flags, no insignia, just a ship ready to go home. As the ramp closed behind him, he whispered to no one, "Let them think we're broken. Let them think we're gone." The shuttle lifted off, silent and swift, vanishing into the star-strewn dark. And somewhere, deep in the heart of the Sol system, the last human fleet began powering up, not for war but for departure. Not to hide, but to become something the galaxy could not yet imagine. The Council would not understand until it was too late. But that was tomorrow's problem. Today, humanity walked away, and the Galaxy Council knew they were doomed. Part 2. In the weeks after Ben Carter left the council chamber, nothing happened. No explosions, no declarations, no last-minute pleas. The galaxy waited, tense and curious, expecting human warships to appear at the borders or secret broadcasts to flood the networks. But Earth stayed quiet, too quiet. Then the silence became real. First, the trade ships stopped coming. Human freighters that once carried grain from Luna's orbital farms, rare Earth metals from Mars, and bioengineered medicines from the Titan labs simply vanished from shipping lanes. At first, dockmasters at neutral ports like Krylo Station assumed delays. But when 3 weeks passed with no arrivals, no distress calls, no replies to hails, they grew worried. By the 6th week, the worry turned to confusion. Human cargo manifests were gone from the shared ledger. Their docking fees went unpaid. Their berths sat empty, gathering dust. Next, the embassies closed. One morning, the human delegation on the ocean moon of Velis Prime powered down their building. Lights went out. Security drones powered off. The front gate sealed itself with a soft click. A maintenance bot later found a single note taped to the door. "Gone home. Thank you for your hospitality." The same scene repeated on 17 worlds. Always polite. Always final. The council watched it all through surveillance feeds and intercepted comms. They expected panic, riots, last-ditch broadcasts begging for help. Instead, they saw order, calm, purpose. Human colonies began shutting down their external networks one by one. Proxima B's main city dimmed its skyline. Epsilon Eridani's research outposts went dark. Even the deep space mining rigs near the Helios belt powered down their transmitters and drifted into radio silence. Councillor Vexilorn called it weakness. "They are collapsing," he told the assembly. "Without our markets, their economies are failing. Without our oversight, their colonies are fracturing. Let them starve in their pride." But Mira Solis wasn't so sure. She had spent years studying human behavior, not just their politics but their stories, their films, their songs, their old-world myths. She knew humans didn't vanish when cornered. They adapted. They built. They left. And when they left, they rarely came back. Then came the ships. Not warships. Not even military vessels. Civilian transports, cargo haulers, passenger liners, hundreds of them, thousands even. began gathering near the edge of Sol space. They clustered around Jupiter's moons near the old shipyards of Ganymede. Engineers worked day and night welding on strange new modules onto hulls, installing drives that didn't match any known design. Council spies sent blurry images back, humans working in silence, faces set, eyes focused on something far away. The Council demanded answers. They sent a diplomatic frigate to the edge of human space, flying under truce colors. It never got a reply. As it approached the outer asteroid belt, every human vessel in the area powered up their engines, not to attack but to move. In perfect unison, they turned and accelerated toward the galactic rim, vanishing into the void beyond mapped space. The frigate returned empty-handed. Its captain reported only one thing. They didn't run. They just left. Back on the Council homeworld, debates raged. Some argued humanity had fled to avoid punishment. Others whispered they were planning a secret return, armed with forbidden tech. But Mira sat alone in her quarters, replaying old Earth broadcasts. She watched footage of humans planting trees on Mars, teaching children in zero-G classrooms, singing songs under alien skies. They weren't running from war. They were walking toward something else. And then the final message came. It wasn't sent through official channels. It wasn't encrypted or dramatic. It simply appeared on every open human frequency across the galaxy. A single audio file, no visuals, just a calm voice speaking plain English. We are no longer participating. That was all. No explanation. No warning. No goodbyes. The message looped for exactly 24 hours. Then all human signals ceased. The Council declared humanity officially non-compliant. They revoked Earth's observer status. They listed human tech as restricted. They told their citizens to forget about humans. They were gone. Irrelevant. A footnote in galactic history. But in the quiet corners of the galaxy, people remembered. Traders missed the bold flavors of Terran coffee. Medics missed human-designed nanobots that healed wounds without scarring. Children missed the wild, colorful stories humans told about dragons and stars and brave kids saving the world. Humans had been messy, loud, unpredictable, but they had also been full of life. Now that life was gone, months passed. The galaxy moved on. New trade disputes flared. Old empires argued over mining rights. The Council turned its attention to the rising tensions between the Zenthari and the Ulmari. Humanity became a memory, then a myth. But out in the deep black, beyond the last known star, something stirred. Human ships, hundreds of them, traveled in tight formation, their new drives humming with a frequency no alien scanner could detect. Inside, families slept in shared quarters. Scientists ran simulations on quantum entanglement fields. Pilots charted courses through regions marked uncharted or void on all official maps. They weren't lost. They were exploring. Earth itself began to change. Cities powered down, not from lack of energy but by choice. Solar arrays folded away. Data centers went silent. The great orbital rings around the planet dimmed their lights one by one. But underground, in hidden labs and shielded vaults, work continued. Not on weapons, not on shields, on something deeper, something quieter. They called it the convergence. No one outside Earth knew what it meant. But those who stayed behind, scientists, engineers, dreamers, knew. They were building not just ships, but a new way of being. A way where mind and machine, biology and starlight could exist as one. They weren't leaving the galaxy because they were weak. They were leaving because they had outgrown it. And they weren't coming back, not as the galaxy knew them. On a quiet night in Geneva, the last human ambassador stood on a hill overlooking the empty city. The streets were clean, the buildings intact, but no lights shone in the windows. He looked up at the sky where the stars seemed brighter without light pollution. Somewhere out there, his people were sailing into the unknown, not as refugees but as pioneers. He whispered, "We tried to show you. You weren't ready." Then he turned and walked toward the waiting shuttle. Behind him, Earth slept. Not dead, just waiting for what came next. And in the council chamber far away, Vexilorn toasted the end of human chaos with a glass of distilled plasma. He didn't notice the faint flicker in the star charts behind him, a tiny distortion near the Orion spur, where no ship should be, but no one did, not yet. Humanity walked away, and the Galaxy Council knew they were doomed. Part 3. 5 years passed. The galaxy settled into its old rhythms. Trade flowed. Wars flared and faded. The Council held its meetings, settled disputes, and slowly erased humanity from its records. Maps no longer marked soul space. History lessons skipped the human era. Children grew up thinking Earth was a myth, a story told to scare young ones into obedience. Be good or you'll end up like the humans, parents would say. Alone and forgotten. But then the silence broke. It started with a mining outpost. Cathari Deep 7 orbited a dead star near the Orion Spur. It was small, just a dozen workers, a few drones, and a shielded comms array. Its job was simple: harvest rare isotopes from the star's debris field and send them back to hegemony shipyards. One morning, its scheduled data burst never arrived. The Council pinged it, no reply. A patrol cruiser was sent to investigate. When it arrived, the outpost was gone, not destroyed. Not damaged, just empty. The docking clamps hung open. The solar collectors still turned toward the dead star. Inside the habitat module, meals sat half-eaten on trays. Tools floated in zero-G as if dropped mid-task, but no people, no bodies. No escape pods launched. The ship's log showed nothing unusual, just routine operations, then a sudden cutoff. The only odd detail: the main console displayed a single line of text in plain English. "You should have let us go." The cruiser's captain reported it as a possible accident. Maybe a hull breach. Maybe a rogue AI. The Council filed it under unexplained incidents and moved on. Then it happened again. A Zenthari science vessel, the Veil 9, was mapping gravitational waves near the edge of former human-explored space. It sent regular updates for weeks. Then silence. A rescue team found the ship adrift, power low, but systems intact. The crew was missing. Every personal item remained: clothes, data slates, even a child's toy left by a visiting relative. On the bridge, etched into the metal console with something sharp, were the same words: "You should have let us go." This time, fear spread. Whispers filled the corridors of the Council. Some said it was ghosts. Others blamed ancient space predators. A few even suggested humans had returned as vengeful spirits. But Mira Solis knew better. She had studied the patterns. Both incidents happened near regions humans once used for deep space research. Both involved systems that had pushed into zones Earth had marked off-limits in old star charts. And both messages were in English. Not translated, not broadcast, just there, as if written by a hand that shouldn't exist. She brought her findings to the Council, but Vexilorn dismissed her. "Coincidence," he said, "or sabotage by rival factions. Do not feed the panic." But panic came anyway. A month later, a freighter carrying Ulmari biocrystals vanished between relay stations. Then a Cathari border station lost contact during a routine shift change. Each time the scene was the same: no violence, no struggle, just absence. And always the message, sometimes carved, sometimes displayed on a screen, once written in condensation on a viewport. The galaxy began to feel watched. Ships started avoiding the outer sectors. Colonies near former human space doubled their patrols. Parents pulled their children from schools that taught human history. The Council tried to control the narrative, blaming spatial anomalies and quantum drift, but no one believed them. The truth was too clear. Something was cleaning up the edges of the galaxy, and it knew exactly who had ignored humanity's warning. Mira spent her nights in the archives, digging through old Earth data. She found strange patterns in human scientific papers, references to observer effects, consciousness fields, and non-local awareness. At the time, the Council had laughed. Human mysticism, they called it. But now Mira wondered, what if humans hadn't just left? What if they had changed the rules of reality itself? One night she accessed a buried file from a human university. It described an experiment where a group of people, linked through neural implants, could affect the behavior of particles light years away, just by focusing their thoughts. The paper was labeled theoretical, but what if it wasn't? She tried to warn Vexilorn again. "They're not attacking us," she said. "They're correcting us." "Like pruning a tree," he scoffed. Humans were flesh and blood. They needed air, food, sleep. They couldn't just vanish into nothing. But what if they don't need those things anymore? Mira asked. He had no answer. Then came the worst incident yet. The Council's flagship, the Dawn of Unity, was hosting a summit near the Helios Belt, the very edge of where humans once lived. During the meeting, all comms went dead. When backup ships arrived, they found the Dawn floating peacefully, its lights on, its engines warm. But every soul aboard, over 2,000 delegates, crew, guards, was gone. Not a single body, not a drop of blood, just empty corridors and quiet rooms. On the main view screen, glowing softly in the dark, were the words everyone now dreaded. "You should have let us go." This time the Council couldn't hide it. Banyi. Sea exploded across the galaxy. Ships refused to leave port. Planets sealed their skies. The Zenthari recalled their entire fleet. The Ulmari entered a state of deep meditation, hoping to purify their presence. Vexilorn finally called an emergency session. His plates were dull gray, fear, though he'd never admit it. "We must find the source," he declared. "We must fight back." But how do you fight silence? Mira stood in the back of the chamber watching the chaos. She knew the truth now. Humanity hadn't built weapons. They hadn't hidden in caves. They had stepped beyond the need for war. And in doing so, they had made the old galaxy obsolete. The disappearances weren't random. They targeted systems that exploited others, that hoarded resources, that ignored the weak. The Cathari mining outpost? It used slave labor. The Zenthari ship? It was testing weapons on uninhabited worlds. The dawn of unity? It represented a council that valued order over justice. Humanity wasn't punishing the galaxy. They were cleaning house, and the council, for all its power, had no defense against a force that didn't hate them, but simply no longer saw them as real. In the quiet that followed the emergency session, Mira looked out the observation window at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans were watching. Not with anger, not with pride, just with the calm certainty of those who had already moved on. She whispered to herself, "We didn't lose a war. We failed a test." And the galaxy, for the first time in centuries, felt small, very small. Because the doom wasn't coming with fire or fury, it was coming with silence. And silence, she realized, was the loudest sound of all. Humanity walked away. And the Galaxy Council knew they were doomed, part, for Mira. Solace stopped sleeping. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw empty ships, silent stations, and those words carved into metal like a ghost's signature. She knew the Council was wrong. This wasn't an attack, it wasn't revenge. It was something deeper, something the galaxy had never faced before. While others panicked or denied, Mira dug. She went back to the oldest human records, the ones buried under layers of outdated formats and forgotten passwords. She spent days in the archive vaults sifting through poetry, school essays, engineering logs, and children's drawings, anything that showed how humans really thought. At first, it made no sense. Humans talked about stars like friends. They wrote songs about falling in love with robots. They built gardens on spaceships just to smell dirt. To the Council, this was chaos. To Mira, it was a clue. She found a pattern, not in weapons or war plans, but in ideas. Humans kept returning to one theme: connection. Not just between people, but between people and machines. Between thought and matter, between life and the void. They believed consciousness wasn't trapped in the brain. It could spread, grow, merge. Old Earth scientists called it quantum entanglement of mind. Poets called it becoming starlight. The Council had dismissed it all as fantasy. But what if it wasn't? Mira pulled up a file from a university on Mars, dated just weeks before humanity vanished. It described a project called the Convergence. Not a weapon, not a ship, a state of being. The goal was to link human minds so deeply that they could share not just thoughts but senses, memories, even presence across any distance. The paper claimed test subjects could feel each other's heartbeat from different planets. The Council had labeled it pseudoscience. Mira now wondered if they'd been blind. She cross-referenced the disappearances with human research zones. Every vanished ship, every empty station. They all sat near places where humans once ran deep space experiments. Places where gravity bent strangely, where time seemed to slow, where sensors picked up faint pulses that matched no known energy source. It wasn't random, it was a boundary, and the galaxy had been crossing it. One night, alone in her quarters, Mira played an old human song. It was simple, just a voice and a guitar. The lyrics spoke of walking away from a broken world to find something better. She listened until dawn. Then she knew. Humanity hadn't died. They hadn't fled. They had changed. They had learned to exist without bodies, without ships, without even needing to speak. Their minds had woven themselves into the fabric of space itself, like threads in a cosmic net. And where they had been, reality remembered them. That's why the outposts vanished. Not destroyed, but gently unraveled like a dream upon waking. The humans weren't taking people. They were removing what no longer belonged. Mira wrote a report, not full of fear, but clarity. She explained that humanity had achieved what every species in the galaxy secretly dreamed of: unity without control, peace without force, evolution without war. They hadn't abandoned the galaxy. They had simply stepped into a new layer of existence, and the old rules no longer applied. She requested an emergency audience with the full council. Vexilorn almost refused, but the disappearances were spreading. A Cathari supply depot near the galactic core went silent. A Zenthari nursery station, filled with young ones, vanished without a trace. Even the council's inner ring felt unsafe, so they agreed to hear her. Mira stood in the same chamber where Ben Carter had walked away. Her hands shook, but her voice did not. She spoke slowly, in simple words, so even the oldest delegates could understand. Humanity is not our enemy, she said. They are our future, and we are failing to follow. She showed them the data, the research, the patterns. She explained how humans saw the universe not as a place to conquer, but as a living thing to join. They didn't build empires, they built bridges between minds, between stars, between what is and what could be. The messages aren't threats, she said. They're reminders. You should have let us go means you held on too tight. You valued power over peace, you demanded obedience instead of trust. And now the universe is correcting itself. Silence filled the chamber. Even Vexilorn said nothing. His plates had turned a pale silver. Uncertainty. Then a Zenthari elder clicked softly. If they are everywhere, why haven't they taken us? Because we're still choosing, Mira replied. They won't force us to change. They never did. They just showed us the door. And now, the door is closing. She looked at each delegate in turn. This isn't doom by fire. It's doom by silence. The systems that exploit, that hoard, that hurt, they fade. Not because someone destroys them, but because they no longer fit, like old code in a new program. The universe is updating, and we must decide, do we cling to the past or learn to walk with them? No one answered. But that night something changed. Across the galaxy, individuals began to question. Soldiers refused orders to raid neutral worlds. Traders shared supplies without profit. Families opened their homes to strangers. It started small. Just whispers, just choices, but it spread. Because deep down everyone felt it. The old way was ending. Mira returned to her quarters and looked at the stars. She didn't fear them anymore. She felt invited. She opened a private channel. One last human frequency she'd kept hidden. She didn't send a message. She just sat in silence, breathing slowly, thinking of rivers, trees, and quiet nights on Earth. And for the first time in years, she felt a presence. Not a voice, not a shape. Just a warmth, like sunlight on skin. She smiled. They were watching, not as judges, not as gods, just as those who had walked ahead, and they were waiting to see if anyone would follow. The council still sat in its chamber, arguing over defenses and shields. But Mira knew the truth. No weapon could fight this. No treaty could stop it. The only way through was to let go, to walk away from fear, to become something new. And somewhere, In the deep dark between stars, humanity waited. Not in ships, not in bodies, but in the quiet space between heartbeats. Ready, if the galaxy was brave enough to join them, humanity walked away, and the Galaxy Council knew they were doomed. Part 5, it began not with sound, but with stillness. One morning, across the galaxy, every being woke with the same feeling, a deep calm, like the quiet after a storm. No alarms blared, no ships exploded, no armies marched. Yet everything changed. The feeling carried no words, no images, no commands, just understanding, clear, simple, and complete. Humanity was not coming back. They had already arrived. Counselor, Vexilorn stood on the observation deck of the central spire, staring at the stars. His plates were dull, his posture slumped. For the first time in his long life, he felt small. Not weak, just small. Like a child seeing the ocean for the first time. He had spent his life building walls, drawing lines, demanding order. Now, he saw those walls were made of sand and the tide had come in. Down below, the city of the Council homeworld moved differently. Kethari guards lowered their weapons. Zenthari traders shared goods without contracts. Ulmari elders opened their memory pools to strangers. No one ordered it. No law changed. It just happened, like leaves turning in the wind. The feeling had shown them what was real. Connection mattered more than control. Life mattered more than power. And peace was not the absence of war, but the presence of trust. Mira Solis walked through the quiet streets barefoot, her robe loose, her hair unbound. She passed beings who once would have ignored or feared her. Now they nodded, not out of duty but kindness. She stopped by a public garden where a young Zenthari child was planting seeds in soil brought from a dozen worlds. The child looked up and smiled. Mira smiled back. No words were needed. The great fleets of the galaxy sat in their docks, engines cold, not because they were broken, but because no one wanted to fly them for conquest anymore. Ships that once carried weapons now carried food, medicine, stories. Pilots who trained for battle now charted courses to lost colonies, offering help instead of demands. The change was not forced. It simply grew, like grass through cracks in stone. On distant worlds, systems that had thrived on cruelty began to fade. A mining planet that used slave labor found its machines refusing to start. A trade hub that hoarded resources saw its vaults empty overnight, not stolen, just gone, as if the universe had decided they were no longer needed. No violence, no punishment, just correction. Like a body healing itself by shedding what harms it, the council chamber sat empty most days. Delegates still came, but they no longer argued. They listened. They shared. They remembered that they were not rulers but caretakers. Vexilorn, once proud and sharp, now spoke softly. He admitted his fear. He asked for guidance. And others, for the first time, offered it without expecting anything in return. Mira knew this was what humanity had hoped for. Not surrender, not worship, just awakening. They had not returned as conquerors. They had become part of the universe's quiet rhythm, and in doing so they had reminded everyone else how to breathe. One evening, Mira stood on a hill outside the city, looking up at the sky. The stars seemed brighter, closer, as if the veil between worlds had thinned. She closed her eyes and thought of Earth, not the planet, but the idea, home, belonging, growth. And in that moment, she felt it again, the warmth, the presence, the silent welcome, she whispered. We're trying. And somewhere in the space between atoms, between heartbeats, between stars, something answered, not with sound, but with light. The old galaxy did not end with fire. It ended with a sigh, a letting go. Empires did not fall, they simply stopped mattering. Laws did not break, they became unnecessary. The need to dominate, to own, to control, it faded like a bad dream upon waking. In its place grew something fragile but strong. Communities formed across species lines. Children learned each other's songs. Elders shared stories under open skies. Ships sailed not for profit but for wonder. And when someone asked, what happened to humanity? The answer was always the same. They showed us how to be more than we were. Years passed. The name human became a verb. To human meant to care without expecting return. To human meant to walk away from fear and toward hope. To human meant to see the universe not as a resource but as a home. Mira grew old. She never married, never ruled, never sought fame. She simply lived, taught, and listened. On her last day, she sat beneath a tree grown from earth seeds, its leaves silver in the moonlight. She closed her eyes and smiled. She felt no pain, only peace. And as she breathed her last breath, she did not vanish. She joined, not in body, not in name, but in the quiet hum of the stars. The galaxy was not doomed by humanity's departure. It was saved by it. Because doom is not always destruction. Sometimes doom is the end of a lie. And the truth, once seen, cannot be unseen. Now, when new beings are born, they do not ask, who rules the stars? They ask, how do we belong? And the answer is always the same. Walk gently, listen deeply, and never forget. You are part of something greater. Humanity walked away, and in doing so, they gave the galaxy a second chance.